Part 13. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 Pavilion in the Heart of the Lake. Mr. Nan's face turned cold. Men want to save face and don't want others to see their embarrassing side. Especially if you are rejected after chasing a girl, it is definitely a taboo. But this fourth uncle didn't know what was going on. Not only did he hide to the side and watch, but he also came up to him without even saying a word. Wasn't this meant to make fun of him and cause trouble for him? He glared at his fourth uncle bitterly. Fourth uncle's heart skipped a beat. This young Master Nan was angry. The two had been working together in business for so many years. He knew young Master Nan's temper better than anyone else. He looked very gentle, but in fact he was a gentle scum and a ruthless master. It's not a good idea to hold a grudge against such a person. The fourth uncle scolded Xiaoling 1,800 times in his heart, and suddenly his eyes rolled, and the plan came to his mind. Mr. Nan, I have an idea to help you deal with that stinky girl. He whispered a few words in Mr. Nan's ear. Mr. Nan looked unhappy at first, but after listening to his fourth uncle's words, he slowly smiled. Sure enough, you are still smarter than ever. Fourth uncle, you are doing well with this trick of cutting firepower from the bottom. If this happens, I will introduce you to that big client in the north. My fourth uncle, thank you very much. We are all a family, so why are you grateful? Mr. Nan said with high spirits. If this girl knows what is good, I will give her the treatment of a rich wife. If she doesn't know what is good, get ready, we will take care of this matter tomorrow. Done. Over there, Xiaoling knew nothing about the two people's conspiracy and spread the quilt in the room. The bedding was freshly laundered and very clean. She spread it out on the bed clumsily and pretended for a long time that she couldn't figure it out. Grandma Ye slept in the same room with her. When she heard the noise, she smiled and said, "It's not done yet. Come on, Grandma will help you." The old man groped over, grabbed a corner of the sheet, and felt the cotton lining. He skillfully put it into the sheet and smoothed it out. Xiaoling was dumbfounded. Grandma is so amazing. She was very ashamed. She, a young man with hands and feet, could not even compare to a blind old woman with a blanket. She suddenly felt that her years of life had been in vain. This child, Grandma Ye shook her head and sighed as she helped her put the quilt on. What will you do if you get married in the future? You can't even put on a quilt, but you have to marry a husband who loves you and dotes on you. He can help you just do some housework. Xiaoling's face turned slightly red. Grandma. Grandma Ye heard her voice and smiled again. Little girl, are you still shy? Come and tell Grandma what's going on with your suitors. Grandma will help you with your advice. I'm not thinking about getting married, Xiaoling muttered softly. That won't work, said Grandma Ye. Even if you don't think about getting married, you still have to try falling in love first. After a few years, you will know who is suitable for you and who is not. Girl, Grandma is here, listen. Grandma, what you like the most may not be the best for you. Even if you love it to death, you may look back one day and realize that it was all hot-headed if you didn't experience one or two more relationships. Got cheated? Xiaoling was silent. What Grandma said made sense. Wasn't she and Pei Ziyan the same? She loved so passionately that she was like a moth to the flame, looking for death and survival. In the end, she was riddled with scars and even lost her life. The one you like the most may not be the most suitable, it may just be a hothead. She smiled to herself. Girl, what's the matter? Grandma Ye spread out the quilt and pulled her to chat. What kind of boy likes our Ling Yedu? He is really discerning. Xiaoling laughed softly when Grandma Ye said it. After thinking about it, she said, he, sometimes is very nice, and sometimes he is very annoying. He takes good care of me and protects me when I am in danger. He often pretends to look for opportunities to give me gifts, and he also makes excuses for some people. The jealousy thing is really too much. I have clearly not agreed to be his girlfriend, so what right does he have to control me? Xiaoling started talking to Grandma Ye. Once she started talking, she couldn't stop talking. Grandma Ye sat nearby and listened with a smile, nodding from time to time. Did this girl realize that she actually liked that boy? This kind of childlike attitude is obviously caused by being in emotional troubles. This boy is good, when will he bring it to Grandma to see? Grandma Ye said. Xiaoling was stunned for a moment. Grandma, what does this mean? I already said that he has nothing to do with me. Okay, it doesn't matter, Grandma Ye smiled, but Ling Yetu, when you look for a boyfriend in the future, you have to follow the standard. You know, those who know how to feel hot and cold will be able to live a good life in the future. Xiaoling listened to Grandma Ye's words. Li Lei's handsome smile appeared in her heart, and she blushed slightly. That night, the grandfather and grandson slept in the same room and chatted for a long time. When she finally fell asleep, Xiaoling thought to herself that it felt good to have a home, and she really wanted a home of her own. The next day, Xiaoling got up. I found that Grandma Ye was no longer in the room. When I went out and asked, I found out that the old man had eaten too much at the birthday party last night and had gastrointestinal discomfort. He was sent to the hospital by his second aunt and eldest aunt early this morning. Xiaoling was a little worried and asked her fourth uncle, is Grandma's condition serious? The fourth uncle said it was okay. The eldest aunt called back from the hospital and said that she would just give him some prescription for digestion and she would be back in the afternoon. Xiaoling felt relieved. The people around me were also idle, and my fourth uncle suggested that everyone go to the fields to play. He said, this is Mr. Nan's first time in the countryside. We should take him around to visit. Xiaoling rarely comes back, so we just want to walk together and feel the changes in our hometown. Father Ye and Aunt Lu expressed their intention to go. Xiaoling saw that everyone was so positive and it would not be appropriate to go alone. Besides, this was actually her first time in the countryside and she wanted to see what the real countryside was like, so she agreed. The group of people walked along the path and through the fields. As far as the eye could see, there were patches of green farmland, with a large lake nearby filled with lotus flowers. The little girl Yingying from the second uncle's family clapped her hands. Third uncle, fourth uncle, I want to take a boat to pick lotus flowers over there. With a finger of her little hand, she pointed to the only one among the thousands of continuous green leaves. A small pointed horn, a tender pink lotus flower, is particularly eye-catching among the large blue waves and green leaves. The fourth uncle smiled, found two boats nearby, and invited everyone to get on the boat and cruise the lake. Xiaoling stepped on one of them first, followed closely by Nansheng. Xiaoling frowned but said nothing. Nansheng smiled at her in a friendly manner and said in a very gentlemanly manner, the wind is strong on the bow of the boat. You sit behind me and I will paddle. Xiaoling was happy to stay away from him and sit down. The small boat could not accommodate many people. The fourth uncle and fourth aunt came up next, and it was full. The rest of the people got on another boat, and the two boats rowed slowly towards the lake, with lotus leaves in the fields. At first, everyone could still joke with each other, but after a while, the two boats split into two directions, and they could no longer see each other. There is a pavilion in the middle of the lake over there, let's go and have a rest suddenly, Nansheng said with a smile. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 122. Chapter 122, Horror in the Lotus Pond. The group of people parked the boat beside the pavilion in the middle of the lake and boarded the pavilion. Looking around, the lotus leaves are green, and the breeze ripples them, bringing with them a faint fragrance. Xiaoling had been sitting on the boat for a long time and her legs and feet were a little numb. She took a few steps in the small pavilion and distanced herself from Nansheng. Nansheng seemed to be very sensible today and did not lean towards her. She was enjoying herself and looking at the distant scenery alone. After a while, Nansheng's voice came from behind, "Are you thirsty? I have mineral water here." She turned sideways, only to find that her fourth uncle and fourth aunt had disappeared at some point, and the boat had also disappeared without a trace. Only she and Nansheng were left in the empty pavilion in the middle of the lake. "Where are the others?" she asked, slightly wary. "You mean Uncle Ye and fourth aunt?" Nansheng smiled, his watery peach blossom eyes lingering on Xiaoling. "They have gone back beforehand. I think the scenery here is nice, why don't I stay with you for a while longer?" If Xiaoling still couldn't see that something was wrong at this time, her life would have been in vain. "I'm tired too and want to go back," she said calmly. "Are you tired too? What should we do?" Nansheng pretended to be worried. "The boat has been rowed away by my fourth uncle. There is water in all directions here. We have to wait for them to pick it up. Are you cold? In the middle of the lake it's windy, be careful of catching a cold. Come here and I'll protect you from the wind." Nansheng smiled and leaned towards Xiaoling, trying to pull her into his arms. Xiaoling nimbly dodged to avoid him. "Nansheng, what are you doing?" Nansheng's arm fell flat, but he said calmly, "Xiaoling, don't be so open-minded. Girls are weak, so what's wrong with hiding in my arms? By the way, has anyone ever said that you are beautiful?" Teasing, this is teasing without any disguise. A trace of disgust flashed in Xiaoling's eyes. Why is this person so disgusting? "Mr. Nan, please respect yourself." Her tone was as cold as the cold ice and snow, and she looked around, looking for a way to escape. Nansheng is confident. Does this girl want to escape? How is it possible to escape? This pavilion in the middle of the lake was a place specially chosen by fourth uncle because it was surrounded by water. Once Xiaoling was trapped, it would be difficult to fly. When the time comes, as long as Nansheng does a little trick to take possession of her body and cook the raw rice into cooked rice, are you still afraid that she won't obey? With a smug look on his face, he slowly approached her. "Xiaoling, you have been in the entertainment industry for so long. This is not the first time you have done this kind of thing with a man. What is there to be ashamed of? Anyway, this is not the first time you have done this with a man. We, a man and a woman, are trapped in this small pavilion and have nothing to do. Why don't you try it with me? There is something wild in the lotus leaves." Xiaoling was so disgusted that she almost vomited. Trash. She simply couldn't find any other words or music to describe him. Trash. Nansheng smiled more interestingly. "Okay, girls who dare to curse are hot enough, I like it. As for whether I am trash, you have to try to find out." "Xiaoling, I will let you try it, you must." "I will be in a state of ecstasy." He is very confident in his ability in that area. Among men, he is considered to be extremely talented. Every time he hangs out among flowers, no woman dislikes him. This is also the reason why he was able to deceive two good wives at a young age. At that time, he can manipulate and enslave them as he pleases. This is also the reason why Nansheng dared to touch Xiaoling. Even if Xiaoling has become involved with a financial sponsor who is richer and more powerful than him, as long as she can tie her up in the matter of Yunyu, won't all other problems be solved? As long as you try it once, you'll never be able to leave her again. Nansheng smiled evilly and grabbed Xiaoling's arm. Xiaoling had goosebumps all over her body. She instinctively threw him away and kicked him hard. The poor Mr. Nan fell into the water like a butterfly, with a splash and a big wave. She wiped the spot on her arm where he had scratched her hard. This person is so disgusting, and he doesn't know how high the sky is and how he dares to dream about her? Maybe he never dreamed that Xiaoling knew self-defense. When she followed Pei Ziyan in her previous life, She hired the best personal trainer to learn it for a long time. Even if she couldn't defeat those professional bodyguards, she was more than enough to deal with 3 or 5 scum like Mr. Nan. She looked at Nan Sheng splashing in the water coldly. Trash, next time, I will destroy your third leg. Nan Sheng was embarrassed and angry. You. Cough 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 cough, you stinky girl, just wait for me. I want you to look good. He was not good at water, so he splashed in the water while talking, and choked several times in a row. Xiaoling saw that he wouldn't die for a while, so she didn't bother to pay attention to him. She took out her mobile phone and called the driver. Master Zhou, I have something wrong here. I need you to pick me up as soon as possible. I'm at Lianhua Lake in the south of the village. In the small pavilion in the middle of the lake, you have to ask the villagers to borrow a boat. No, I'm fine, I'm just a little impatient. Okay, I'll wait for you. She hung up the phone and watched coldly as Nan Sheng struggled out of the water. He pulled up the stone floor of the Huixin pavilion with his fingers and tried to climb up. She stepped down hard. Ah screamed, and Nan Sheng fell back into the water. Why are you stepping on me? He was angry. You didn't let me come up, so you wanted to murder me. I'm going to sue you. Want to live? She sneered. The midday sun shone on her body, dots of gold. She was obviously a beautiful lady, as delicate as jade, but for some reason, Nan Sheng only felt a chill. Swim to the shore yourself. She raised her hand and pointed grimly at the distant shore. She would not let Nan Sheng climb up to the Huixin pavilion. Otherwise, who knew whether he would continue to murder her? If you want to blame it, just blame Nan Sheng for his own good and his own misfortune. Nan Sheng turned around and looked at the distance to the shore. You are crazy. How can I possibly swim across? Xiaoling said coldly. Can't swim across. Then just die in the water. Nan Sheng was furious and went to pick up the edge of the lake pavilion again, but was stepped down by Xiaoling again. She stepped on it so hard that the skin on Nan Sheng's fingers was broken and bleeding, and bursts of heart-wrenching pain made him howl like a killing pig. You have to think clearly, Xiaoling said condescendingly. If you step on it twice more, your hand will be useless, and you won't be able to swim to the shore. Why not take advantage of the fact that you still have some strength now? Maybe you can still go back alive. Nan Sheng was so angry that he vomited blood, but had to face the reality. This woman looked down at him with such cold eyes. Even he was not sure if she really dared to kill someone. I miss him, Mr. Nan, who has such a valuable status. If it were in vain, it's really not worth dying here. Forget it, let's let that stinky woman go for now. It's important to save your life first. Nan Sheng is a smart person. As soon as he figured it out, he immediately stopped talking nonsense with Xiaoling and swam towards the shore on hands and feet. Xiaoling watched from a distance as he landed on the shore. The dead fish collapsed in the mud on the shore. Not far away, 2 young men passing by pointed at him and approached hesitantly. They were frightened by his dead appearance and ran away quickly. The surroundings were finally clear. Xiaoling was trapped in the pavilion in the middle of the lake, looking at the lotus leaves everywhere, eagerly waiting for the driver to rescue her. Unexpectedly, the 4th uncle and 4 aunts group came before the rescue. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 123. Chapter 123, Leave money to buy your life. They rowed a boat and came to the pavilion in the middle of the lake. When they saw Xiaoling alone, they were shocked. Where is Mr. Nan? Xiaoling said nothing and looked at them with a sneer. The 4th uncle felt guilty when she saw him, and his expression turned stern and he said, I ask you where Mr. Nan is. I've knocked you down, she said lightly. The 4th uncle was stunned, shocked, and scared. What? You knocked Mr. Nan into the water. Where is he now? Has he been rescued? Can he swim? With that, he rushed to the pavilion in a sprint. At the edge, his eyes scanned the calm water, trying his best to find Nan Sheng's figure. After searching for a few times, I couldn't find it, so I couldn't help shouting, Mr. Nan, Mr. Nan dash. Xiaoling was resting and leaning on the wooden pillars of the pavilion. It's really noisy. What did you say? The fourth uncle suddenly turned his head and stared at her with red eyes. Where did you do Mr. Nan? You pushed him into the water. If he doesn't know how to swim, he will die. Damn it! Do you know how much trouble you've caused? I can't afford to shoot you 100 times. Xiaoling looked at him like a clown. The fourth aunt on the side also jumped anxiously. No, husband, we have to call the police on this matter. If Mr. Nan is really drowned by this smelly girl, she will be the murderer, a murderer. We have to cut ties with her. Yes, yes, the fourth uncle said with sweat on his forehead and tremblingly as he took out his mobile phone. Call the police quickly. Xiaoling was speechless. What kind of best relatives are these? First he designed to frame her, and now he wants to hand her over to the police indiscriminately. She sneered softly, okay, I just want to call the police. Yalaosi, what do you mean by secretly paddling the boat away just now? Why did you trick me into coming to this place specifically so that Nan Sheng could attack me? The fourth uncle was angry. What did you call me? Yalaosi, Xiaoling looked at him steadily. In the past, I gave you the title of fourth uncle for grandma's sake, but you don't deserve this title. How black-hearted a person must be to join forces with outsiders. Are you plotting against your own niece? Okay, I want to see how the police deal with your kidnapping. The fourth uncle felt guilty after what she said. Yes, if this matter is really investigated, they tricked Xiaoling into coming here. Even if Xiaoling pushed Nan Sheng into the water, it was just self-defense. Even if Nan Sheng died, it can only be said that she was overly defensive. For a moment, he was embarrassed and silent. But the fourth aunt screamed, Yes Xingling, I tore your mouth off. What does this have to do with us? You went to Huxending Pavilion voluntarily. We just rode back to pick up something, and we will be back soon. Who knows what shameful things you and Nan Sheng did? You murdered him yourself, don't blame others. Xiaoling looked at her coldly, her eyes as solid as a knife, which made the fourth aunt shut her mouth. Just when Xiaoling was about to say something, suddenly, another boat docked at the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Monsieur, the person who came up was the driver, Master Zhou, and he called her respectfully. You came just in time. Xiaoling smiled softly, help me tie these two people to the pillar. Yes Xingling, what are you going to do? The fourth aunt screamed again, my God, this murderer just murdered Nan Sheng, would he want to kill them to silence him? The fourth aunt became more and more frightened as she thought about it. She retreated to the edge of the pavilion and said to Master Zhou, You, don't come here. Master Zhou was a special forces soldier. He used a few grappling techniques and easily subdued the fourth aunt. The fourth uncle was so frightened that he did not dare to move. He watched helplessly as his wife was caught, her long-sleeved coat was taken off, and her body was in a circle. After dealing with the fourth aunt, Master Zhou did the same thing to the fourth uncle. Then, he lowered his hands and returned to Xiaoling, waiting for further orders. Xiaoling, Xiaoling. The fourth uncle was trembling. Apparently he also thought about the issue of murder and silence, and was very afraid. Your Excellency has a large number. We know we are wrong. Let us go, okay. Xiaoling smiled and walked slowly in front of the two of them. Let you go? Then my grievances were not in vain? You must give me an explanation. I understand, the fourth uncle thought he understood what she meant. Xiaoling, the fourth uncle will give you 10,000 yuan, no, 100,000 yuan, so you can save my life, please. Yalaosi, it turns out your life is only worth 100,000 yuan, Xiaoling half smiled. The fourth uncle was heartbroken. 1 million. Xiaoling just looked at him and said nothing. 5 million, Uncle Fourth gritted his teeth, saying there was no more. Although he was in the luxury furniture business, he had limited liquidity. These 5 million were all the assets he could scrape together in a short time. Xiaoling, please spare your life. I only have 5 million in cash in total. No matter how much I have, I can only give you the factory. You are from a little girl's family and you don't have the energy to take care of it, right? Xiaoling was a little surprised to be able to squeeze out 5 million. She originally just wanted to scare them, but who knew she could actually get the money? That's fine, just consider it as compensation for her mental loss. Don't let this money go to waste. She frowned in apparent embarrassment. It's a little less, but you're a cheap person, so you can't sell it at a good price. Yes, I'm cheap in order to survive, the fourth uncle hurriedly responded, but his heart was vomiting blood, full of anger and humiliation. Xiaoling smiled again. I just don't know the fate of my fourth aunt. Is she as cheap as you? The fourth uncle was stunned, and the fourth aunt was also stunned. Why, this girl still wants to collect two amounts of money. The driver, Master Zhou, was speechless as he watched. Miss Ye was really good at blackmailing people. No wonder his young master liked her so much. This confident and self-righteous attitude is like the young master's demeanor when he led people to engage in arms negotiations. Master Zhou stood solemnly on the surface, but his thoughts were wandering. The matron of the Li family wanted to find someone who could hold up the position and take on the task, who was bold and fearless, so that she would not be like the young master's biological mother. Because he was too kind and soft-hearted, he died at a young age, leaving the young master to grow up alone. Xiaoling smiled lightly. Yalaoxi's life is worth 5 million, but I don't know how much the fourth aunt is worth. If the money to buy a life is too small, it is better to just kill him to save trouble. She turned to Master Zhou and asked, Master Zhou, if you dump the body in the pond here, will it be discovered? Master Zhou suppressed his laughter and replied seriously, take off your clothes and burn them. Then tie a big stone and sink it into the mud at the bottom of the lake. It will soon rot, be eaten by fish and shrimp, and turn into a lotus flower. Fertilizer disappears without anyone noticing. A cool breeze blew across the lake. The fourth uncle and the fourth aunt shuddered in unison. So, have you decided? Xiaoling paced slowly. Do you want to buy this fourth aunt's life or not? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 124. Chapter 124 Wild Mandarin Ducks. 5 million, I will also pay 5 million, the fourth aunt said hurriedly. Oh, Xiaoling gave her a playful look. Why did I just hear Yalaoxi say that your family's total working capital is only 5 million? I have private money, said the fourth aunt, 2 million. There is still 3 million for the fourth child to scrape together. It's enough to sell some things. What? You actually have private money? Fourth uncle glared at her fiercely. The fourth aunt was wrong, but thinking that her life was at stake, she said angrily, Bah, why can't I have private money? Si Lao Ye, I have never had a good life since I married you. You and that Nan Shen, what will happen to my family if I don't save some private money? Yalaoxi, you have no conscience. Seeing them quarreling, Xiaoling was in a good mood. Didn't she just want to make her unhappy? She wanted to see who was more unhappy. She had enough time to fan the flames beside her. Selling out? It's too much trouble. I don't have the patience. Let's do it like this. The price is 7 million. You two will leave, but each of you will keep one hand. Both of them were stunned. Suddenly, the fourth uncle shouted, I don't want to leave a hand. Xiao Ling, Ling Yetu, we agreed that 5 million will buy my life. That stinky has nothing to do with me, you can chop off both of her hands. Yalaosi, what are you talking about? The fourth aunt's eyes widened and she screamed crazily, I am really blind to marry you, you wolf-hearted thing. Xiao Ling, don't listen to his nonsense, except for these 2 million, I will give you all my property. If you don't want to chop off my hand, chop off his. It is said that a couple is blessed with 100 days of kindness, but they are so ugly at the moment of life and death. Xiaoling looked at it and suddenly felt uninterested, so she whispered a few instructions to Master Zhou. Master Zhou nodded, jumped into the boat, and rowed away quickly. Xiaoling interrupted the quarrel between the two people and asked, how can I get the money? The two people were stunned. The fourth uncle was afraid that Xiaoling would not let him go, so he quickly said, I have cash in my travel bag. 1 million, 2 large gold bars and a Rolex watch. I put it in the guest room of your grandma's house. Here, Xiaoling, you can take all of these, and I will transfer the rest to you when I am safe. He brought a lot of things this time to bribe Nan Sheng, but he didn't expect to find the right time to send them out. He was by Xiaoling. Xiaoling smiled with satisfaction, where is the fourth aunt? I'll give you all my gold rings, gold earrings, and gold necklaces, said the fourth aunt. Xiaoling frowned. She was not interested in the things on her body and found them dirty. However, it doesn't matter if she doesn't want it, since she is satisfied with earning those things from her fourth uncle anyway. As for the rest of the money, she didn't think about continuing to ask for it. After her fourth uncle and fourth aunt left Huxinting and regained their freedom, they would definitely not give her the money, and she didn't bother to bother. Xiaoling. The fourth aunt asked cautiously, you say that, does it mean you can stop chopping off our hands? I didn't intend to chop off your hands in the first place, Xiaoling said. What? Fourth aunt was stunned. Do you think I really killed someone? Xiaoling sneered, can you please be smarter? If I really killed someone, would I still allow you to pay for your life? Not to mention 5 million, even 50 million. Kill you here. Her last words were said in an understatement, chilling and scary. The fourth aunt shrank her neck back. What about Nan Sheng? The fourth uncle asked cautiously. As soon as he finished speaking, the water beside the lakeside pavilion rippled. It was Master Zhou who came back in the boat and dragged a man who was like mud into the lakeside pavilion. The man's eyes were closed tightly, his teeth were clenched tightly, his face was ashen, and he was so angry that he almost looked like he was about to die. This is Mr. Nan. The couple were startled and confused. How did Mr. Nan do this? Yasin Ling, what on earth did you do? They were afraid of Yasin Ling before because they thought she was a murderer because she killed Mr. Nan. But now Mr. Nan appeared in front of them. Although he was dying, they were sure of one thing, that is, Xiaoling did not dare to kill anyone. After figuring out this key, they were no longer afraid. The fourth uncle was instantly furious, you stinky girl, how dare you trick us? And you lied to me and promised you so many benefits. There are quite a lot of benefits, Xiaoling smiled, thank you for letting me watch a dog-eat-dog show for free, and you also gave me millions of tickets. She deliberately provoked the couple and caused gaps in their relationship. Do you think they will still have time to scheme against others in the future? It would be great if these two people go back without getting divorced. She was in a good mood and said to Master Zhou, take off Nan Sheng's clothes and Yalaoxi's clothes too, and throw them into the lake. Master Zhou didn't know what she was going to do, but he did it. The fourth uncle howled like a pig, Yasin Ling. Let me go. Yasin Ling, you will be punished. Xiaoling ignored them and walked to the boat and sat down with her back to them. There was a gentle breeze on the lake, and the waves were calm. After a while, Master Zhou reported from behind her, Miss Ye, everything is naked. Are you taking off your underwear too? Master Joe, yes, what kind of bad taste does this monsieur have? Yes, his young master's future wife must be strong and strong, but will this be too strong? Master Joe's mood was a little complicated. Xiaoling leaned forward and picked out a long lotus stem from the lake, and handed it to Master Joe without looking back. Take this, hit Yalaosi hard, it's best to extract the scars, and Nansheng, Lian Lake is so interesting, 2 men and 1 woman, you know. Master Joe understood in an instant, this, was asking him to fake a love affair in the wild and enjoy the scene. You still have sex, and you even use the flower stem to her off. She's such a heavy-mouthed devil. Master, what kind of perverted girl do you like? Master Joe's heart was broken, but Xiaoling still urged, hurry up, by the way, remember to be more realistic. You don't need me to teach you which parts to use, right? Master Joe. He finished the task assigned to him by Xiaoling. Looking at the ambiguous blood marks on the inner thighs, waist, hips and chest of his fourth uncle and Nansheng, even Master Joe felt that he was too perverted. Xiaoling ordered him again, tearing the fourth aunt's dress a little more torn, making her hair a little messy, a little more provocative. Finally, she took into account that the fourth aunt was a woman, so she didn't do too much to prevent her clothes from being uncovered. Body and exposure. In this way, under her plan, Master Joe finished everything and took her away in a small boat. There are wild mandarin ducks in the pavilion in the middle of the lake, and 2 men and 1 woman are fighting passionately. Xiaoling tilted her head slightly. Well, rumors are spreading like this. Let people come and watch. The more lively the better, she laughed slyly, trying to frame her. She. Then try this great gift from her. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 125. Chapter 125, Who Bullies Whom? The news spread quickly, and country people love to be lively. They talked in groups of 2s and 3s with excited and ambiguous smiles, and went to watch. After a while, the lakeside was full of people, pointing at the 3 people in the pavilion in the center of the lake. Look, aren't those the 4th uncle and 4th aunt of the Ye family? Why are they tied up? Oh, the 4th uncle is naked. You can't tell. These 2 couples usually look like dogs, but they like to play with this. That's right, the 4th son of the Ye family and his mother-in-law feel great after making some money in business. The folks in our hometown always talk with their heads raised every time they see us. What the hell? We are still playing in the lake now. Fighting in the field corrupts morals. Didn't we say 3 people, is there another one? On the ground, look. Hey, there is a person on the ground, why didn't he move and passed out? Haha, he must have been too excited and ran out of energy to faint. Poor the 2 people he tied to the pillars, they couldn't untie them. These people are really having fun, ha ha ha. A group of fellow villagers laughed with interest again. The eldest aunt and 2nd uncle of the Ye family accompanied Grandma Ye to the hospital. At this time, there were only the 3rd child in the family, Xiaoling's nominal father, and her stepmother, Aunt Lu. After learning the news about Huxinting, the 2 of them felt like they were struck by lightning. How could this happen? It was obviously a good time when they went to the lake before. The 4th uncle and the 4th aunt said that they were going to bring that stinky girl Ye Xingling and Nan Sheng together, and they also guaranteed that after the event was completed, the Nan family would definitely give them a big gift. How did things become like this in a blink of an eye? Aunt Lu instinctively guessed that Ye Xingling, that stinky girl, had done something, and rushed to find her to argue. At this time, Xiaoling had just returned to the house with her driver, Master Zhou, and pushed open the guest room where 4th uncle and 4th aunt Ye lived. Sure enough, she found a large travel bag in the room, filled with cash, gold bars, and a Rolex watch. Move them all to our car, Xiaoling said. Since the fourth uncle and the fourth aunt committed suicide, she accepted these things without politeness. She casually grabbed a handful of money and gave it to Master Joe. "Take it for your hard work." Master Joe. This Missia is really becoming more and more like a young master. Even her demeanor when dividing the spoils is like a replica of the young master. As expected, it is not that a family does not stay in one house. Master Joe silently remembered the young master's instructions before leaving. "This Missia is your young master's future girlfriend and the future matron of the Lee family. You must protect her, there can't be any mistakes." Okay, he will respectfully accept the things that the future mistress of the house rewards. Then, he easily lifted the heavy travel bag with one hand and took a long step to put it into the trunk of the BMW. After Xiaoling finished all this, she stretched her body and stretched her muscles. She opened her door and found Aunt Lu and her fourth uncle waiting inside. "Yeah, lost everything." "What did I do to them?" Xiaoling smiled coldly. "Why don't you ask them what they want to do with me?" "What can they do to you?" Aunt Lu was angry. "You are lucky that Mr. Nan can like you. They just want to find a place with a better scenery to woo you. In the future, you will marry into the Nan family and enjoy what's wrong with endless glory and wealth. What kind of lard did you get into to make things like this?" Haha, Xiaoling simply didn't bother to talk to her. Why marrying into the Nan family brings prosperity and wealth? She knew with her knees that Aunt Lu was just coveting the gift. "Instead of arguing with me here, I think you should get back Laozi and those incompetent guys quickly. They are the ones who are embarrassed in Hyuxin Pavilion," she said softly and skillfully. Aunt Lu choked. "I won't go to such a shameful thing." "If you caused it, go." She heard that fourth uncle Ye and Nan Gongza were both naked, and fourth aunt was also disheveled, and the whole village was talking about them. Did she do something immoral? I heard she even played in a very perverted way. She was and whipped. Aunt Lu blushed just thinking about it. "I'm not going anyway," Xiaoling said. "Don't blame me for not reminding you. Nan Sheng has fainted and is naked. The ground in the pavilion in the center of the lake is cold and the wind is strong. If you go late, he might die." Father Ye and Aunt Lu were furious. If Nan Sheng died here, the entire Nan family would not let them go. They became frightened. Father Ye looked at Xiaoling tremblingly. "But Xiaoling, you are the one who caused this." Xiaoling looked at him and felt cold and desolate for the original owner of the body. What kind of father is this? When his daughter was bullied and faced such great danger, he turned a blind eye. Once something happened to the perpetrator, he put all the responsibility on his daughter alone. "Am I biological?" Xiaoling said. Mr. Ye blushed and lowered his head. Aunt Lu had already shouted, "Ye Xingling, don't be ignorant. You rebellious girl. If Mr. Nan dies, the Nan family will only look for you, and it has nothing to do with us. If you want to save people, you go." Xiaoling smiled. "You seem to have forgotten one thing. I am a big star. If something like this happens, there will naturally be a company to protect me. As for you, you will be in big trouble. Guess, the Nan family will take revenge. When it comes to me, who will I vent my anger on?" "You." Aunt Lu was furious. Father Ye also raised his head. "Xiaoling, you can't be so cruel." "I'm vicious." Xiaoling's face was smiling, but her heart felt chilly. Is this the so-called father? Ye Zhongxiao, listen carefully. You can either go to Hyuxin Pavilion to save people, or get out of my room. That's all. It's your business whether to go or not. Yes, father was very confused. He didn't have the courage to persuade Xiaoling anymore. He hesitated for a long time. He could only save people by himself. Otherwise, when Grandma Ye came back, what if this matter spread to Grandma Ye's ears and made the old man angry? He was silent and walked out. When Aunt Lu saw her husband leaving, she snorted coldly and stomped out of Xiaoling's room. On this day, fourth Uncle Ye, fourth aunt and Mr. Nan did not come back. Xiaoling guessed that they felt too embarrassed to stay in this village any longer. In the evening, Grandma Ye returned home under the of her eldest aunt, second uncle, and others. Xiaoling went up to greet her and called out sweetly, "Grandma, are you okay?" Grandma Ye stroked her long hair lovingly, "Grandma is fine. The doctor prescribed some medicine and she is fine now. But you, little girl, how are you doing at home today? Is anyone bullying you?" "How could someone bully me?" Xiaoling still smiled. Aunt Lu on the side couldn't stand it. "Just pretend, you stinky girl. It's good if you don't bully others." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 126. Chapter 126, The Robber Who Broke Out Halfway. Xiaoling helped Grandma Ye into the house. The eldest aunt prepared dinner and invited everyone to eat. At the dinner table, Xiaoling only talked about happy things with Grandma Ye, such as the fresh air in the countryside and the lotus flowers that were about to bloom at Lianhu Lake today. As for the unpleasant things, she didn't mention a word. The eldest aunt and others had heard about what happened in Huixinting. When she was in the kitchen just now, several villagers came over to find out what was going on, and asked what the relationship between Mr. Nan and the fourth couple was. Is it the fourth daughter-in-law who is too slutty, or is the fourth daughter-in-law just for both men and women? The eldest aunt was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She secretly cursed the fourth child for not living up to expectations and for being embarrassed and thrown into the village. But she did not suspect Xiaoling. After all, neither Xiaoling nor Master Zhou would tell. Father Ye and Aunt Lu also felt that a large group of people had been tricked by a little girl and were embarrassed. They had no shame in telling the truth to the outside world. Anyway, it was Lao Si's family who took the blame, and it had no impact on their own reputation, so why bother talking about extraneous matters? Grandma Ye asked, "Why don't you see Lao Si's family and his friends?" The eldest aunt hurriedly came out to smooth things over, "Mom, you know that the fourth child is busy with business. He received a call from a customer this afternoon and hurried back to the city to handle business." Grandma Ye nodded, "This fourth child only cares about business and doesn't know how to take good care of himself. He left in such a hurry. I originally wanted to pick some fresh vegetables to take back to him." After saying that, she turned to Xiaoling, "Xiaoling, when Grandma goes to pick some fresh vegetables from the fields tomorrow, you can take them back to the city. They are healthier than those bought outside." Xiaoling responded with a smile. In fact, she stayed with Li Lei for food and accommodation, and the ingredients were either specially supplied by air or delivered from Li Lei's own farm. They were no worse than the vegetables picked by Grandma Ye, but she was very touched by the old man's thoughtfulness. "It feels so good to care." Grandma Ye asked her when she would leave. Xiaoling said, "Tomorrow, I have to go back to the city to catch up on work. I have to make several announcements." Grandma Ye sighed, "These children and grandchildren are all very busy people." Xiaoling felt a little guilty and said, "Grandma, I will visit you when I have time." Grandma Ye nodded, took her hand and warned her again. The next day, Xiaoling took her father Ye and Aunt Lu back to the city with the vegetables picked by Grandma Ye. Along the way, the atmosphere was even weirder than when we arrived, and everyone was silent. Xiaoling was drowsy while sitting in the passenger seat. Suddenly, the car suddenly stopped and she woke up. "What's wrong?" she asked Master Zhou. She looked up and saw two cars coming out of nowhere in front of them, blocking their way. There were also three cars surrounding them in the rear-view mirror. "Did you encounter a robber or something?" A bad feeling arose in her heart. A man got out of the car in front and walked towards them. Master Zhou said in a deep voice, "Miss Ye, just sit in the car and don't come out no matter what happens. Xiaoling agreed. Master Zhou closed all the windows, got out of the car and closed the door. He and the man didn't know what they were talking about, but the man's face turned cold, and with a wave of his hand, more than 20 men armed with sticks, fruit knives and machetes poured out of several cars in front and behind. A group of people quickly started fighting. Master Zhou was one against many, and within a short time he had kicked down 5 or 6 people. However, there were so many people that he retreated steadily, and his body quickly became stained. Several men holding machetes walked around Master Zhou and walked towards the BMW. Aunt Lu screamed, "What to do, husband? They are coming. They are coming soon. No, I want to escape, I want to escape." "Shut up and sit still," it was Xiaoling. Although she was also very nervous, she still remained calm. She knew very well that the car sent by Li Lei was not an ordinary car. It had riot-proof structures inside, the glass was bulletproof, and the doors it has also been specially reinforced. As long as they stay inside and don't get out, they will be safe. But Master Zhou. Xiaoling looked at Master Zhou, who was retreating steadily. At this juncture, he still tried his best to stop the people who were walking towards the BMW. If it weren't for protecting them, he wouldn't have suffered multiple injuries. Although Xiaoling knew some self-defense skills, she knew it would be useless to rush out at this time. She took out her mobile phone and planned to call the police. Unexpectedly, she suddenly heard a soft knock on the back door of the car. It was Aunt Lu who opened the door. The wolf-like thugs broke in and dragged Aunt Lu and her husband out, and then came to drag Xiaoling, the co-driver. Xiaoling was caught off guard. Her phone fell to the ground and was dragged out of the car by them. "Let me go," she shouted angrily, but several thugs ignored her and twisted her hands behind her back, holding her body so that she could not move. Over there, Master Zhou, who was covered in blood stains, was also subdued. "Who are you?" Xiaoling suppressed the fear in her heart and asked in a calm tone. One of the thugs laughed ferociously, "You bitch, if you want to blame, it's your ignorance of life and death that offended our Mr. Nan." He waved his hand and said, "Take her away." Mr. Nan said that today he will tie up the bride and prepare wine for the bridal chamber. Ha 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 ha. The group of people laughed wildly. Xiaoling finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Nan Sheng was seeking revenge. "What you are doing is illegal," she said. "I will not marry Nan Sheng." "It's not up to you to decide whether to marry or not." Another man looked at her wildly. "Little girl, after you have a bridal chamber with our Mr. Nan, you will definitely know your taste. When the time comes, you won't leave even if I drive you away." Ha ha ha. "That's right, your parents have agreed to your marriage, why are you so pretentious?" Xiaoling looked over and saw Father Ye and Aunt Lu standing among a group of thugs, unharmed. She suddenly realized why Aunt Lu had just opened the car door with lightning speed. Originally, she thought Aunt Lu had done something stupid out of fear, but it turned out that Aunt Lu was acting in harmony and wanted to sell her to Nan Sheng. It is difficult to guard against domestic thieves. Xiaoling was so angry that her hands and feet were cold. She stared at them closely, but she laughed. "Very good, Ye Zhongxiao, Lu Zayadai, from now on, you are not my parents. Isn't it? It's not you who has the final say, stinky girl." Aunt Lu played with her hair and walked up to Xiaoling with a high air. "When you and Mr. Nan get married later, you will still have to bow to us too. When the wedding ceremony is over tonight, you will obediently follow Mr. Nan to the Civil Affairs Bureau to complete the formalities tomorrow morning, and you will be Mr. Nan's from now on." Mr. Nan gave the Ye family a total of 800,000 yuan as a bride price. Why was Aunt Lu unhappy? Even Ye's father said calmly, "Xiaoling, don't resist, just accept your fate. What's wrong with following Mr. Nan? Women should marry chickens, dogs, and dogs. Besides, Mr. Nan is so rich." I won't treat you badly. Part of him was tempted by the gift, but the other part really thought that her marriage to Nan Sheng was a good marriage. Xiaoling knew it was useless to say anything to them, so she simply shut up. Looking up, he saw that Master Zhou had been beaten unconscious by them. He was covered in blood and he didn't know whether he was alive or dead. Xiaoling raised her head and said coldly, "It's fine if you want me to follow you obediently. You have to ensure Master Zhou's safety. Otherwise, even if you kidnap me, I won't be willing to do it. When we get married there will be a lot of trouble. You can't escape." She wants to save Master Zhou's life first. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 127. Chapter 127 The Tied Bride. Several thugs laughed, and one of them patted Xiaoling's face with satisfaction. "You little bitch, you are so sensible." Xiaoling turned away in disgust. They pushed her around and tried to eat tofu. Xiaoling squinted her eyes and said coldly, "You'd better show some respect. After tonight, I will be your Mr. Nan's wife. If you let him know that you are like this, you will be rewarded." Men want to save face, and no matter what the purpose of Nan Sheng marrying her, he will not tolerate other men touching his wife. The thugs looked stern and became more cautious. They escorted her to a nearby resort, a small villa with red brick walls, a room covered with red carpet and mandarin duck bedding. Nan Sheng was wearing groom's clothes, sitting on the bedside waiting for her. "You're here," he smiled at her gracefully, as if the troubles yesterday had never happened. He waved his hand, and the thugs with knives and sticks retreated. Xiaoling said, "Nan Sheng, I didn't expect you to be so despicable." "Despicable?" Nan Sheng smiled. "Xiaoling, don't be so angry. I just love you so much. After the wedding tonight, I believe you will also fall deeply in love with me. Come on." As he spoke, he pulled Xiaoling into his arms. Xiaoling's hands had long been tied behind her back by the thugs. Even if she wanted to resist, she was powerless. She tried her best to avoid his inappropriate touch and said in a hateful voice, "Nan Sheng, you beast, I won't let you go." Nan Sheng laughed heartily. "I said, I like women who are hot enough." He raised her face and wanted to kiss her, but Xiaoling turned her head away. "Okay, very good." Nan Sheng pulled her face back and smiled gloomily, making people shudder. "Yes, Yingling, right." After he finished speaking, he slammed the door and left. Xiaoling's heart was beating wildly and she couldn't calm down. What to do? Is it really doomed tonight? Her brain was spinning rapidly, but she couldn't think of any good solution. She was so anxious that she almost cried. After her rebirth, this was the first time she was so scared and helpless. Who could help her? The handsome smiling face of a person appeared in my mind. Lilei, it would be great if Lilei were here. The door to the room was opened again, and several women walked in. "Are you the bride?" The leading woman looked her over and told the others, "Hold her down and put her into the bride's dress." They rushed forward and, regardless of her resistance, stripped off all her clothes and put on a white silk wedding dress with a strapless strap and a tail. The wedding dress was a very close-fitting style, outlining her beautiful curves. Her slender legs were looming under the skirt as she walked. Not to mention the men, even the women who came to change her clothes couldn't move away. Sight. "Tisk, tisk, you are really a beauty," one of the women said. "No wonder Mr. Nan fell in love with you. I didn't expect that. You look thin and small, but you have a pretty good figure." Xiaoling pursed her lips tightly and said nothing. They gathered around her, put on makeup and styled her hair. After more than an hour, a beautiful bride was completed. Her hands were still tied, but they were tied from behind her back to facing up. They used a white rope and put white lace gloves on her. They tied a large bouquet of white lilies and roses on her hands as the bridal bouquet. They were not careful. "Look, no one will notice that her hands are not free at all." Get her a pair of high heels, the thinnest ones, the leading woman said, and ask the two bridesmaids to hold her tightly so that she won't run away. After the wedding is over, send her to Mr. Nan's bed. Our mission is over. Several women nodded in agreement, and one of them looked at Xiaoling jealously. You are such a shameless woman, and you want to run away after being spotted by Mr. Nan? Do you know that if you marry him, you will enjoy endless glory and wealth? Xiaoling's face was still expressionless. The woman felt bored and pushed her hard. Let's go, really, I'm just a little star, why are you dragging me here? I don't know how to seduce Mr. Nan, now I'm pretending to be aloof. Xiaoling was held tightly by them, half dragged and half dragged out. The stilettos didn't fit her feet, causing severe pain every step she took. But what hurt even more was the fear and uneasiness that occupied her heart. She didn't want to marry a prostitute, and she didn't want that disgusting trash to touch her. However, after the wedding, she would be forced to have with him. Xiaoling walked very slowly, deliberately struggling, not cooperating, and delaying, just hoping that the moment would come later. Unfortunately, the two bridesmaids were very strong and they grabbed her tightly and dragged her into the wedding hall. There were 18 tables of banquets in the hall. Sitting at the guest table were the fourth uncle's family, Father Ye, and Aunt Lu. The other dozen tables were occupied by nearby villagers, and there were also many people dressed as thugs who had just attacked. The people in her car were also among them. Nan Sheng was dressed in a groom's attire and walked towards her in high spirits. Xiaoling, you are so beautiful, he looked at her up and down with lewd eyes. Under the crystal chandelier, her porcelain white complexion was as beautiful as jade, her waist was slim and her hands were tightly tied, but her expression was cold and arrogant, like an unattainable rose of ice and snow. It made his mouth go dry. Soon, you will be mine, he swallowed and said. Xiaoling only felt disgusted. Beasts, beasts, garbage. He smiled. No matter how much you curse, it won't change the fact. He waved his hand, and the two bridesmaids carried her to the hosting platform in front of the wedding banquet. The host said a lot of complimentary words, nothing more than the talent and beauty of the man, the good marriage for 100 years and so on. He asked the groom, Mr. Nan, are you willing to marry Miss Ye as your wife, and you will never leave her no matter how rich or poor you are? Nan Sheng stared at her like a snake staring at its prey. I do. The guests in the audience applauded like thunder. The host asked again, Ms. Ye, are you willing to be Mr. Nan's wife? I don't want to, she said coldly. Xiaoling, you are really good at joking. Nan Sheng calmly turned to the host, she is also willing. I don't want to, Xiaoling shouted angrily. However, the host turned a deaf ear and only said, since the bride and groom are both willing, I announce that from today on, you will become husband and wife. Congratulations to both of you. The applause from the audience started again. Xiaoling was so angry that she was shaking all over, but there was nothing she could do. Nan Sheng took her from the hands of the bridesmaid, held her soft waist, and gently rubbed it through the satin fabric. Xiaoling, don't resist, just accept your fate. You will fall in love with me. He lowered his head and faced her. His lips must be kissed. Let her go. Suddenly, a voice rang. This voice is not high-pitched, but it is full of the danger of the storm, making everyone who hears it feel chilly in their hearts. Everyone turned around and saw that the door of the wedding banquet hall had been pushed open at some point, and a handsome young man walked in step by step, with a murderous aura all over his body. Li Lei, when she saw him, she thought she was dreaming, and she almost cried with joy, and even her voice trembled. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 128. Chapter 128. The big boss comes to steal the marriage. Li Lei walked steadily step by step, but seemed to be carrying the force of thunder. The invisible pressure made everyone fall silent. He was wearing a light off-white short-sleeved t-shirt, and the outline of his muscles were vaguely outlined under the cotton material. They undulated with his steps, like a beautiful and dangerous beast. Xiaoling looked at him, watching him step by step against the light, walking toward her among the crowd of armed thugs. At this moment, it seemed that all the noise and chaos in the world had left her, and only his face was so real. It's reassuring. Lilei, she called softly again. Lilei walked up to her and pulled her out of Nan Sheng's arms. Her hands were still tied, the high heels were very thin, her feet hurt, and she couldn't control her balance, so she fell into his arms. He hugged her tenderly and looked down at her hands. They tied you up. She nodded a little aggrievedly. Lilei's eyes became colder, but he didn't say anything. He picked up her wrist and looked at it carefully, picked out the rope and pulled hard, and the originally strong rope broke. He took off her long white lace gloves and frowned. They are all blue. She didn't care. It's okay. It would be nice if he came. Compared to being saved, what is this little injury? Lilei looked up at Nan Sheng. You will pay the price for your actions. Nan Sheng was frightened by his murderous eyes and took a step back. Then she stiffened her neck and replied, Who are you? How dare you come into my territory? Return this stinky girl to me quickly. Otherwise I will make it impossible for you to come back. Nan Sheng felt that although the man in front of him looked untouchable, there was only one person there, and there were 18 tables of guests and more than 200 people in this hall, most of whom were young and middle-aged men, so they were not afraid of him. Lilei ignored him, lowered his head and asked Xiaoling softly, This is China, and it's not convenient to kill people. How about I his hand first to let you vent your anger? If you don't like it, wait until I take him to the high seas and jump into the sea deck or feed the sharks, it's up to you. Xiaoling might take it as a joke if others said this, but she knew Lilei was serious. He is black. The young master of the Daolai family may have had countless lives on his hands. As long as he has the intention to kill, that person will definitely die. But she didn't want him to kill anyone. After all, she had been a good citizen in her 2 lifetimes. The dark underground world was too far away from her, and she couldn't bear to let him take a life just for the sake of a man who attempted rape. She shook her head. Forget it. Lilei's voice was softer, then use his hands. This was the biggest concession he could make. When Master Zhou sent out an emergency signal to tell him that Xiaoling was in danger, his whole body was filled with fear. The feeling was like falling into bottomless darkness, falling and suffering without end. He rushed over as quickly as possible, praying every second that nothing would happen to her. Now, she was wearing such a revealing wedding dress, her wrists were scarred, and she was about to be forcibly kissed. He couldn't imagine what would happen to her if he was a step too late. Lilei's anger reached the critical point, but he was extremely calm. He helped her stand in a safe area and walked towards Nan Sheng step by step. You, what are you going to do? Don't come over. Nan Sheng was frightened by the coldness in his eyes and said tremblingly. Taking a step back, then another step, until there was no way to retreat, Nan Sheng gritted his teeth and shouted, Mercy, Dahua. What are you doing standing there? Get rid of this man quickly. Hurry. Hearing this after his shouting, a group of Nan Sheng's lackeys realized what he was doing, and they all rushed to the stage. Who dares to come here? Lilei turned around, with a gun in his hand. Oh my God, there was a commotion in the crowd. Who is this man? He actually has a gun. You know, guns are banned in the country, and ordinary gangsters can't get such contraband at all. What's more, this gun looks unusual at first glance. It has a thick body, a large caliber, and a black matte coating, which gives people an unspeakable sense of threat. Just when they hesitated to retreat, suddenly, a person shouted out, Don't be intimidated by him. How could anyone in the country carry a gun? This gun must be a fake. Bang, a gunshot. Everyone screamed and backed away. Many timid guests had already fled in all directions. In the panic, some bumped into the table and some fell down. Women cried and children screamed. The scene became a mess. The man who was shouting about the fake gun had already fallen to the ground. A smell came from his body. There was a puddle of yellow water under his body. He was obviously frightened and incontinent. A centimeter from his feet, there was a smoking pit. Lilay sneered, "Next shot, I will aim at your head." The man's face was earth-colored, and he rolled his eyes and passed out. "Run, run," I don't know who shouted, and all the thugs surrounding Lilay fled in all directions like the previous guests. However, before they could run a few steps, they saw the men and women who had escaped before. They rushed back like ghosts, the two streams of people collided, and another wave of people fell on their backs. Xiaoling looked up and saw a dozen big men with guns rushing in along with the guests. They looked cold and well-trained, driving the crowd like a flock of sheep. No one was allowed to leave. "Sir, please spare us," a woman cried. "We don't know anything and we are innocent, please be noble and let us go." Lilay glanced at Xiaoling. Xiaoling said softly, "She was the one who asked someone to tie my hands, don't blame her for being cruel. It was actually that woman who provoked her first. If Lilay hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid she would have been killed by that gang at this moment. The woman is stuffed into the bridal chamber." So Lilay said, "Everyone, be quiet. I will take care of you after I finish taking care of Nansheng. If anyone makes any noise again, don't blame the ruthless gunfire." His voice was not high, even so light that there was no emotion, but it made the whole scene so exciting. It suddenly became quiet, and no one dared to make a sound except for an occasional sob or two. Lilay turned around and looked at Nansheng. Nansheng witnessed the whole process just now, and his legs were shaking so much that he could no longer stand. "Oh my God, who did he provoke? Is this the benefactor of that stinky girl? Damn it, why is it so terrifying and cruel?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 129. Chapter 129 Bloody Wedding Dress. Nansheng wanted to run away, but her legs were too weak to move a step. He had no choice but to beg, "Sir, I know I was wrong. I apologize to you. Please forgive me this time. I am Nansheng from Esjinnan's family. I can give you money. How much money do you want? Everything is fine." Esjinnan's family, Lilay narrowed his eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Nansheng thought that since he was saved, the other party would definitely care about the Nan family's reputation and treat him lightly. However, what he didn't expect was that Lilay only raised his head slightly and whispered in one direction, "Destroyed." Not far away, among the bodyguards with guns, someone said yes. "Destroyed, destroyed." Nansheng's heart was filled with turmoil. What did it mean to kill him? He couldn't mean to kill his whole family, right? He was so frightened that he knelt down to Lilay with a plop, don't kill my whole family, don't kill me. Please. Please." Lilay looked at him coldly. Xiaoling was also worried. Lilay didn't really want to kill the entire Nan family, right? It's not worth risking your life for something like this. So, she advised, "Boss, don't kill anyone." Lilay comforted her, who said, "I was going to kill someone? Seeing that this beast's family still has some money and power, I just want them to go bankrupt. I will let you vent your anger and I won't let them continue to cause trouble." Xiaoling felt relieved. Nansheng also breathed a sigh of relief. It was great that this terrible man could still let his family live. But immediately, he became frightened. He could mobilize more than a dozen bodyguards to surround more than 200 people with guns, and he was not afraid of causing a big mess. What was the unfathomable background? What kind of punishment will he receive if he touches such a big shot woman? A bloodthirsty smile appeared on Li Lei's lips. You touched Xiaoling, huh? You can choose, break off 5 of your own fingers, or let me break off 10 of your fingers. Everyone gasped, this man is simply a devil. To say such a decision in such an understatement, with 10 fingers connected to the heart, not to mention breaking 5 or 10 of them, even if only one is broken, it will be painful. Nan Sheng turned pale with fright. Sir, you can't do this. It seems that you don't want to break it off by yourself, Li Lei said and made a gesture, and 2 tall bodyguards immediately came forward and held Nan Sheng tightly. Then I'll do it. He walked up to Nan Sheng and, ignoring Nan Sheng's tearful pleas, grabbed his hand and broke it hard. With a scream of awe, Nan Sheng's right index finger was broken off. He twitched in pain and wanted to roll on the ground, but because he was held tightly, he could only continue to kneel upright, with big beads of sweat falling down his cheeks. Li Lei broke off his second finger, and the third one. Nan Sheng fainted. Li Lei stopped and ordered the bodyguard, throw him awake. The bodyguard followed the instructions and brought a bucket of water and poured it on Nan Sheng. Nan Sheng slowly opened his eyes. Before he could realize what was going on, there was another sharp pain in his fingers and the sound of bones breaking. He screamed instinctively and passed out again. Li Lei was unmoved and asked people to splash him awake. He repeated this process several times before finally breaking all 10 of Nan Sheng's fingers. Li Lei stood up. His body and hands were all covered in blood. He glanced calmly at the entire hall. More than 200 people in the hall had already cried together. There was a stench in the air, and many people were frightened. Incontinence. He frowned and turned to look at Xiaoling. Xiaoling's face was a little pale, and she bit her lip unconsciously with her thin white teeth, not knowing what she was thinking. Li Lei took a step forward and wanted to go to her, but then he remembered that his hands were covered in blood, so he stopped. Xiaoling, he said, I'll have someone take you out first. The air here was too smelly and the scene was too bloody. He didn't want her to endure it anymore. Xiaoling hesitated and asked him, what are you going to do with them? She was referring to the guests present. Everyone looked at Li Lei eagerly, with pleading in their eyes. Li Lei said, one person who participated in the kidnapping had 5 fingers cut off. Those guests who helped the gangsters. His eyes slowly swept over the ugly faces. There must be something hateful about the poor people. Now he knows. Please, how did he bully the woman he loved earlier? He sneered and made a decision, guests who help the evildoers will slap each other in the face. If each person loses a tooth, he can leave. A new round of begging and crying sounded. Li Lei said, don't want to? Then 2 teeth and 10 fingers. If you still don't want to, 4 teeth and toes. Everyone's pleading stopped. The devil, this young man is simply a devil. Who is he? Who is he? Why are you so arrogant in public? It's a pity that no one dared to ask this question. Everyone tried their best to reduce their sense of existence and remain silent. Li Lei called for someone to Xiaoling. Xiaoling was worried, fearing that after she left, Li Lei would do something more cruel to the people present. Although these people deserved their punishment, she was afraid that the matter would get too big. What if it couldn't be ended? She raised her head and said to him, my foot is injured and I can't walk, please help me. He frowned, ignoring the blood on his hands, and squatted forward, slightly lifting the hem of her wedding dress that was trailing to the floor, and looking at her feet. Under the charming light of the crystal chandelier, her graceful feet were as white as jade and were restrained in a pair of stiletto heels. The leather straps were tightly tightened, leaving several shocking blood marks. Li Lei's hands clenched tightly into fists and then unclenched. Break Nan Sheng's toes as well, he ordered coldly. A bodyguard responded and dragged Nan Sheng aside to deal with it. Xiaoling was frightened. She didn't expect that her casual words would bring disaster to Nan Sheng. Although she didn't feel sorry for Nan Sheng, she was more worried about Li Lei losing control. She quickly said, "It hurts. Please help me go." Li Lei did not help her, but picked her up and said softly, "Be patient." He carried her and walked out step by step. The blood on his body was stained on her white wedding dress, and it was mottled with red, like blooming blood roses. She snuggled into his arms quietly, her long skirt sliding down the steps, knocking over the champagne tower, and the glass goblet shattered to the ground, causing the corners of her skirt to sparkle. Wherever they passed, the crowds rolled and crawled to make way for an empty path, crouching deeply and lowering their heads, not daring to look. Two teams of bodyguards stood beside them and opened the retro door of the villa for them. Two helicopters were parked outside. Li Lei carried Xiaoling and got on one of them. So Xiaoling finally knew why he arrived so quickly. Daking, he flew over directly after learning the news. Thinking of this, she thought about someone again. How is Master Zhou? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 130. Chapter 130 I will take you to see the stars. Li Lei told her that Master Zhou was fine and had been rescued. His injuries were not serious. Xiaoling felt relieved. After she relaxed, she felt a wave of fear, her body was cold, and she was trembling slightly. Being in such a humiliating way. Tied up, like a piece of goods waiting for a price, letting anyone do whatever they want. Unexpectedly, she remembered the experience of her previous life, the long and dark time when she was imprisoned by Pei Ziyan, and she was trampled and humiliated in the same way. Disgrace. Her slender fingers were tightly clenched into fists, and she was curled up into a ball. Li Lei noticed something strange about her, so he put a soft wool blanket on her bare shoulders, hugged her tenderly, and gently patted her thin back. Both of them were speechless for a moment. It was very quiet in the helicopter, only the roar of the motor. After flying for an unknown amount of time, they landed somewhere. Xiaoling was carried down by Li Lei, and then she realized that this was the villa where she first met him. He carried her across the tarmac and across the vast sea of hibiscus flowers. The butlers and servants he met along the way bowed respectfully to them, just like welcoming a king returning in triumph, and his queen. He carried Xiaoling into a bedroom and gently put her on the bed. He then ordered someone to fetch water. He knelt down and helped her deal with the wounds on her hands and feet. Xiaoling was a little embarrassed and shrank back. "I'll do it myself." But he gently held her hand. "It's inconvenient for you to clean and apply the medicine yourself, I'll do it." After saying that, he didn't allow her to refuse, and carefully cleaned the dirt near her wrist with a wet towel, and applied it to reduce swelling and blood stasis. Ointment. Then the feet. There were many wounds on her feet, all of which were blood stains caused by the thin straps of high-heeled shoes. They were and bloody, which looked shocking. Li Lei's eyes darkened, and he endured it again and again, so that he did not rush out and issue a killing order to Nan Sheng. Taking a deep breath, he calmed down his emotions slightly, wiped away the blood on her feet bit by bit, and applied medicine. Xiaoling sat on the bedside and looked down at him. It's really strange that he is obviously a superior boss, but he is willing to condescend to her and do things that only a subordinate would do. Her feet were held in his arms, and she felt his caution, fearing to hurt her in the slightest, as if he was protecting the most precious treasure in the world. There is an indescribable feeling spreading in my heart, sour and sour. After Li Lei took care of her injuries, he raised his head to look at her, just in time to catch her eyes looking at him unblinkingly. Xiaoling suddenly blushed and looked away in embarrassment. "Be my girlfriend." Suddenly, she heard Li Lei say. She was startled. It hadn't been long since he last made this request, and this time he brought it up again? Somewhat at a loss, she remained silent and did not answer immediately. Lilei propped up his body, sat on the edge of her bed, and looked at her seriously. Xiaoling, be my girlfriend. In the future, whether you are celebrating a birthday or visiting relatives and friends, I can legitimately accompany you. Go ahead and protect you. She bit her lip slightly. Yes, if he was here, she would feel very safe. I don't know since when, whenever he appeared, she felt like the sky was falling and she wasn't afraid. But she has no strength to fall in love with anyone anymore. Love is like a moth flying into a flame. They met too late. Her moth had been turned to ashes in someone else's flame. Now she is just an empty and lifeless body. She shook her head with all her strength. Why, he asked eagerly, am I not good enough? No, she said softly, lowering her head, not daring to look at him. Lilei, I will never fall in love with anyone again in this life. I have no strength or courage. The meaning in her words' despair made him heartbroken. Lilei didn't know what happened to her that made her become what she is today. He sent someone to thoroughly investigate Yezingling's history and found nothing unusual. He guessed that there must be a deep and important secret hidden in her body that made her reveal such behavior that was inconsistent with her age and experience. Desolate. Is it Pei Zion? Only Pei Zion has the ability to evade his investigation, and may even create a false resume for her. Lilei intuitively felt that the story between her and Pei Zion was not simple, but, so what? Now, the fact that she is willing to stay with him and not go back to Pei Zion speaks volumes. The old love has passed away, or at least a huge rift has appeared. He must firmly seize this opportunity and make her his own. Xiaoling, he said softly, I don't need you to love me. At least until you are ready, you can treat me as usual. But give me a chance to love you, okay? I will stay by your side, protect you, and let everyone know that you are my girlfriend. That way, no one who is short-sighted will try to take advantage of you. Let everyone know that you are my girlfriend. Xiaoling's heart ached slightly. In her last life, she had been waiting for this sentence from another man for a whole life, but now, she heard it from Lilei's mouth without any warning. Do you know what that means? She looked at him steadily. Lilei, I am just an ordinary person with an ordinary family background and an ordinary family background. I am not from the same family as you. Don't you feel embarrassed? What's there to be ashamed of? Faintly, he grasped the crux of the problem between her and Pei Zion. Almost out of a male instinct, he began to attack his opponent and create opportunities for himself. The person who truly loves you will not. I will be willing to hide you in the darkness and just be an underground lover who cannot be seen in the light. I will tell the whole world that you are my girlfriend. She looked at him for a long time, seriously. As long as you are willing, I will call reporters for a press conference now. It was like a miracle that she had been looking forward to for a long time. When she had lost hope, she suddenly looked back and found that it had quietly come to her. Xiaoling's nose felt a little sour. She turned her head away and gently wiped the corners of her eyes. Xiaoling, promise me. Lilei's voice was still gentle. I will give you roses and chocolates, take you to the amusement park, and climb snow-capped mountains to count the stars. I will accompany you to all the places you want to go and see all the scenery you want to see. From now on, nothing can hurt you. Anyone who dares to touch you will step over my body. Xiaoling couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lilei was quiet. Is it that funny? He said it like a line from a movie, and he even stepped over your body. It's so exaggerated. She couldn't help but look back. Her eyes were still a little red, but she couldn't help but smile, her eyes bright. Lilei felt a little aggrieved. Look, I can still make you laugh. He grabbed her hand eagerly. You will be my girlfriend, it's a promise. She turned her head and thought for a while, and finally nodded slightly. Lilei cheered and gave her a big hug, as happy as a child. She also smiled, but her mood was mixed. What would be the result of this sudden love? She doesn't know, she only knows that the longed for sunshine is right in front of her eyes. End of this chapter.